You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode, we're flipping out in Fab Facts.
We're up to our necks in trouble in the Randomiser.
And we're celebrating 3 years of the podcast with filmmaker Michael Shanks. That's all coming up in this very birthday Pod 156 of the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to the hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast. Happy birthday to us. You see, I wasn't expecting your harmony. You've really put me off. Yeah, totally put me off.
Well, we should have rehearsed it, shouldn't we?
Yeah. Anyway, happy birthday.
Yeah, we should have done a bit more rehearsal over the last 3 years, really.
Well,
shouldn't we?
No point starting now. It's too late.
Yeah, but happy birthday.
3 years of the Gerry Anderson
long years.
Podcast. You get less for severe shoplifting.
That's true. You'd be out by now. Imagine that.
Yeah. Gosh. So, Podsteron, have you been with us since the very beginning? Do let us know. Podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk. Have you listened to all 156 episodes of the Gerry Anderson Podcast?
Crikey.
If so, we can only apologise, but we did warn you in the very beginning, and you've only got yourself to blame. So this is the third anniversary edition of the Gerry Anderson Podcast. I'm Jamie Anderson, and I am accompanied by...
Richard James, and, oh, look, over there, it's Chris Dale.
And he's putting the finishing touches to our birthday cake.
He is. I hope it's not a red velvet. Please say it's not a red velvet cake.
No, I haven't.
It is.
No, it's not. It's not. The red sponge is throwing you off, but it's actually a rainbow cake, and it's one of those ones with M&Ms in the middle.
Oh, yes, perfect.
So which is great. So thanks, Chris. We'll look forward to eating that cake later. And Richard, what can we expect in this very special birthday episode of the Gerry Anderson Podcast?
Jamie, as it's a very special birthday episode, I thought we'd do things exactly the same as we've done for the previous 3 years.
Now that is a great idea. That's how you surprise your audience by doing the same thing when they expect to do something different.
Yeah, so that means that we've got Fab Facts coming up in a little while. It also means we've got some news from the Gerry Anderson universe. It means that we've got Chris Dale's amazing Randomiser coming up a little later on. Ooh. And, of course, we've been hearing from our Podsterons at podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk and via our Facebook group and via Twitter and YouTube. And the second part of your interview with Michael Shanks.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Lovely Australian Michael Shanks, not the Canadian one that people maybe thought it might have been.
Right.
But Michael's been one of our most downloaded episodes in ages.
Oh, so fantastic.
Clearly a very popular guest. Yes, he'll be here, including talking about his meta reimagining of Thunderbirds, which is most unusual and may cause division and amusement and maybe even some disgust among Podsterons. So stand by for disgust. Richard, to celebrate, would you like a very special
glass of
but very plain Fab Facts?
To celebrate?
Yes. Come on
then.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
It's Fab Facts. I've got a book of Fab Facts. I'm going to flick through the book of Fab Facts, and Richard's going to shout, birthday.
Fab. Oh.
That's how we make this Fab Facts birthday age, you see.
Okay.
Yeah?
I see that. I like
so you're
what
going to shout birthday, and I will stop flicking through the book of Fab Facts and read you the fact from that Fab page. Are you ready?
Yeah, yes.
Make sure you shout the right thing because I won't be stopping for Fab today.
Yes, I will.
Good. Here we go.
Birthday! Oh, that was rubbish. I'm not doing that again.
Oh, all right. Fine.
Made no sense.
It did in context. Well, you have stopped us.
Yeah.
In 1969.
Oh, a year we very often return to.
It is, but in this case, it's the year of release of something, and that thing is Doppelganger.
Oh, it's also the year of my release.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes. Carry on.
Fine. Well, two rather good things were released that year. Yeah. Doppelganger, more commonly known these days by its American title, The Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. Mm-hmm. For those who have not yet seen the film, spoilers ahead, so you may wish to look away now. Oh, no, that won't do any good.
Plug your 50 years.
Yeah, I know, but we do get occasional complaints when we talk about things that are even older, weird, saying you've got spoilers there. But okay, but spoilers. Yeah. It stars Roy Thinnis. It is Thinnis, isn't it?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, and Ian Hendry as two astronauts who travel to a new planet on the opposite side of the sun and discover a duplicate Earth where everything is the same, except it's not because it's mirrored. But it's the same other than being mirrored. So all of the writing and logos and so on are backwards in this on this mirror Earth. It's appropriate then that this movie about doubles and duplicates should also have acquired an unexpected duplicate of its own.
Really?
During the 1980s, a second version of the film seems to have entered circulation on British television, presumably thanks to an engineer who was making a duplicate print of the film for broadcast and spotted what he thought was a mistake.
Never.
He noticed that in the second half of the film, the picture seemed to be flopped over with lots of weird backwards writing, almost like you were looking into a mirror.
Right.
Well, surely that can't be right, thought Mr. Engineer. I've got to fix that. Except, yes, it was right, Mr. Engineer. That was the point of the film.
That's the point!
But sadly, Mr. Engineer evidently didn't watch the film and didn't know anything about the story, so presumably gave himself an enormous pat on the back for spotting and fixing the problem and then went home. And that version was then screened several times on British TV during the 1980s.
How funny.
So instead of Roy and Ian from our world finding themselves on a mirror world where everything is the same except reversed, this new cut followed their mirror counterparts finding themselves on our world and facing the same problem. Obviously, the film played out exactly the same. There was no new material added or cuts made, just a slightly confusing switch in the middle where, having crash landed on a new planet with Ross and Kane, the audience suddenly find themselves back on our Earth with Ross and Kane's doubles.
Weird.
It very occasionally happens with sci-fi shows where someone who isn't directly attached to the production or who isn't in the loop fixes, in giant air quotes, something that wasn't actually broken to begin with. Famously, the very first episode of Star Trek ran into problems when they were doing makeup tests to see how a green-skinned woman would look on film. Only the technician who processed the film didn't realise that she was meant to be green and so stayed up all night correcting her back to human skin tone.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this went on for several days with increasingly greener paint being employed, only for the actress to keep ending up looking perfectly human in the rushes, until someone finally bothered to talk to the guy in the film lab and explain, she's meant to look bright green,
she's meant
mate.
to be green, yeah.
Yeah, accent not accurate to the time. Going back to Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, or Doppelganger, we're not exactly sure when Mr. Engineer's version of the film was last broadcast in the UK, but it was possibly 1986, since the only other time the film has been shown on British terrestrial TV since then was on ITV on the 18th of July in the year 2000, where the original cut was shown as an unscheduled replacement for a TV movie called A Mother's Instinct, which had been pulled from the schedule at the last moment. We know not why. Since then, the original cut has been played on the Sci-Fi Channel, Sky Movies, and is currently on the Horror Channel, and the version you find on the DVD and Blu-ray too. So it's probably safe to say that Mr. Engineer's version has been retired somewhere along the line.
Yes,
but
fair enough.
How strange that should happen on a film where the story itself kind of has a built-in defense mechanism that can accommodate that correction.
Yeah.
So since events seem to be playing out exactly the same on both planets, it doesn't really matter which version you see. because within the story, both are happening simultaneously.
That's right.
So obviously it might have been confusing for viewers of Mr. Engineer's version to see Roy Thinnis losing his marbles about backwards writing that isn't backwards. But that's what would have been happening on our Earth anyway.
Yes, exactly.
So to him, it would have been backwards because he's the doppelganger.
Yeah.
If you have any information of any international broadcast of that version of the film, please let us know. And if you fancy seeing it for yourself, well, you'll have to do it yourself. If you've got basic editing software, you can rip your DVD or Blu-ray and flip it over yourself and enjoy a sort of weird alternate universe confusing version at your leisure.
Yes, you could do that, I suppose, yeah.
So there you go.
Oh, nice. It's a bit like there's a film called Memento, isn't it, which is told backwards. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It'd be a bit like one of the editors getting hold of that and going, oh, no, they made a dreadful mistake. They're telling the whole thing out of order and cutting it all together.
Well, Richard James, on that
and I know that is a version you can watch, can't you?
Yes, if you have the DVD of Memento at home, Podsterons, and you don't know about the Easter egg version, then on the main menu, while the background video is playing, there's a moment at which the word Memento Mori flashes on the screen. If you press enter or play at that moment, you will see the film in chronological order.
Yeah, that's right. I quite like the idea, though, if for future editions of Doppelganger, that they include that version as well as a little Easter egg surprise. Yeah. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
But then really, you should start it on the alternative Earth as well, where everything is backwards. So the first half of the film, everything would be backwards.
Yes.
So that we know that these are... And you'd be wondering the whole time, why is everything backwards? And then when they arrive on our Earth, then you're like, oh. Aha. So that would work, wouldn't it?
That would work.
I don't know.
Just imagine, though, on this mirror world, are they listening to pod number 651 this week?
I don't really want to get into it. Yeah, what a terrible thought. Poor them. No, I think time still flows forwards. Just everything else is mirrored.
Oh, I see. Yes, of course.
So that wouldn't be. Yeah. Anyway, right. No. Well, what a birthday treat this whole thing has been. This whole debacle has been. Now we've done an outro before where we've said Fab Facts backwards, haven't we? But of course, on the mirror universe where it's been flipped over, it would just be a Fab Fact. So does that bring us to the end of this week's Fab Fact? I guess it does. How convenient.
What a letdown. That was a letdown, though, wasn't it? Couldn't we have said fact, fab, or something?
Well, we had to calf baff, didn't we, before?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, well, it's too late now.
It's too late. Let's move on. Anyway, you are listening to pod number 156, our special birthday anniversary, third birthday edition of the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Now, just a very quick reminder, celebrate with us by subscribing to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on right now. And why not leave us a special birthday rating or review and share the link with your friends so they can get to hear us too. Now, we have had, of course, as usual, lots of emails sent into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Shall I read some of them out?
Ooh, yes.
Well, this one here is from Peter Lippman, who says, hi, Jamie and Richard. I hope you're both doing okay. I'll try to keep this brief for me, as the last thing I want is to add a sad tone to the wonderful things you both do and these brilliant podcasts. So I would just like to give you both, and those who are listening who also know my circumstances, the biggest FAB thank you for the fabulous and so very much appreciated support that you've given me in recent years. Peter says, after so many years fighting with her serious illness, my mum passed away only a few weeks ago, and as her long-time main carer, I've found these last years rather draining, really, emotionally as well as physically. Her funeral was on Monday, and it was a wonderful send-off. The kindness, positive thoughts and support you constantly gave me throughout this time carried me through these tempestuous times. Very best as always, SIG. And that's from Peter Lippman. So all our best wishes, of course. I know we've both spoken to Peter over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, yes.
But we send all our best wishes again to you, Peter. And, hope to see you soon. Anything to add, Jamie? I hear you taking a breath.
No, I was just going to say, having been a carer myself for some time, I completely understand what you've been doing, Peter. And, yes, good on you for doing what you've done. Absolutely. And we hope you're doing all right. And if anybody else is having a rough time at the minute, then we hope we are bringing a little tiny slither of joy into your life.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah. That would be great. Hannah got in touch again to say, hi all, how are you? I'm still listening and keeping up. I'm still listening and keeping up with the podcast. I just realised it was a year ago that you launched your Make Your Own Tracy Island competition. Time flies, even in lockdown, doesn't it? Hannah says maybe you could do something like that from now every week, looking at something back this time last year or 5 years maybe. Oh, I'll think about that. She says, I'm so looking forward to getting the new Thunderbirds book this week. I pre-ordered it straight away. At first, I couldn't decide which one to get, but I think I'll also order the audio as well. I love reading, but I like audio too, and it sounds like the crew put so much effort into it. It would be a shame not to hear it. And I don't think I'm going to put that book down when I start. I can't wait to get started, and I'll be keeping an eye on everything else that pops up. FAB from Hannah. That's very good.
Lovely. Well, I hope you enjoy it, Hannah.
Yeah, do let us know as well. Yeah.
Yeah, the CD version will be with you hopefully later this week, and the book not too long after, fingers crossed. So
and
exciting.
Let us know if you're getting both. I mean, that's, the book and the audio. I can absolutely understand the impulse to want to do that, to read it and hear it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anthony got in touch to say, "Dear Jamie and Richard, it's great news to read about the planned CD and book releases, including Gemini Force 1. I was just wondering, for those living outside the UK for postage, etc., if there's any talk on the horizon for a pre-order bundle or subscription model to order all of the new releases at once. They could also be shipped together instead of piecemeal to save on international postage costs. Well, we've waited for so many years that a few months isn't too bad, though the downloads are a sweetener. It would be nice to ensure that all of the orders are safely pre-ordered and also potentially saving a little on shipping, which has gone up as a result of COVID. Just thought I'd ask if this was a possibility. Kind regards from Anthony."
Thanks, Anthony. We're looking into that kind of thing. Yeah, that's all I can really say at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense to say, yes, I want all the books and audios that are coming out, and just know that they're on their way. But then how do we group them? Do we go every 3 months? Every release? Every 4 months?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yes, but thank you for your suggestion. We will look into it.
"Hello, Jamie, Richard, Marina and Chris," says Julie.
Hello.
See what I did there? She says, "You better watch out, Chris." Julie says, "This has been a nice addition to my leisure life. It started a couple of months ago when I subscribed to your YouTube channel, and soon after I joined your Gerry Anderson Day broadcast. Then I subscribed to the podcast on Castbox, and I listen every week for just over a month now. Then I joined your Facebook group this week, and I've been really embarrassing myself on there ever since. Great fun, all of it." Julie says, "I've been a Thunderbirds fan since the 90s. I did not watch it as a kid, but really took to it as a late teen and onwards, initially on YTV. I grew up and still live in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. My dad was from Manchester, but he wasn't a big fan, so I didn't get it from him. But I love the puppets, the vehicles, the explosions, and there's a general aesthetic that I'm crazy about. These interesting times led me to actually run out of new content. I'm picky, and the world of Gerry Anderson was the first refuge that I sought. So much more to it than I ever knew, and I called myself a fan." So, thank you for that, Julie, and welcome along. And yes,
welcome.
Do continue to have fun in the older Facebook group. Now, finally, Jamie, you offered our Podsterons the opportunity to send in some 6 degrees of Anderson.
Oh, yes, I'd forgotten about that.
I thought you might have done. Yeah. So I think the journey you suggested was a Stanley knife to Marina. Is that right? Can we get there in 6 steps or less?
Oh dear, what was I thinking? Yes.
Right, well, Martin Laybourne got in touch to say, "Hello chaps, here is my 6 degrees of Gerry Anderson for the Stanley knife to Marina. The Stanley blade was part of Stanley's utility knife produced in 1936. Stanley, too, was a popular boy's name during the period from 1890 to 1959. Stanley Baker was a Welsh actor and producer famous for his roles in Zulu and Helldivers, amongst other. That's 3. Helldivers, also starred actor George Murcell. That's 4. George Murcell appeared in many ITC TV adventure series, including an episode of 1960s police drama Gideon's Way. In this episode, he appeared alongside actor and singer Gary Miller. 5. Gary Miller, as we know, sang over the Stingray end credits with Aqua Marina. There we are, Jamie. Give us another one.
Nice. Very good.
Yep, a few more of those. Simon Allen, of course, got in touch. The Stanley knife was invented by the company which became Stanley Black & Decker Incorporated in 2010. 2010 was the sequel to 2001 A Space Odyssey. In the film of 2001, the lunar shuttle pilot was played by Ed Bishop. Ed Bishop appeared in UFO alongside his temporary secretary, Miss Holland. Miss Holland was played by Lois Maxwell, who voiced Atlanta in Stingray. Atlanta was vying for Troy's affections with Marina.
Wow.
All right?
Okay.
Now, do you want a really pathetic one here?
That's a bit rude.
No, and I know Paul Hyder won't mind me saying that.
Marina, you sure?
Marina is an anagram of airman. An example of an airman is a fighter pilot. Fighter pilot is an anagram of polite fright. You can get a polite fright from a spider. Spider-Man was created by Stan Lee. Stan Lee knife.
Wow.
He says, "Okay, I know, a bit desperate. Love the pod, Paul Hyder." Thanks, Paul. That's great. Yeah.
That is extremely different.
Well, you did ask. So have you got another one for us, Jamie?
Of course I do.
Go on then.
I want you to connect Hadrian's Wall to
Fireball XL5.
So can you do that for me?
Great. That's Hadrian's Wall to Fireball XL5 in 6 steps or less. Send them in, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
It's funny how these segments...
Yes, take on a life of their own.
Yes, I'm very happy for that to have happened. So that's
of course.
Great. Yeah. Richard, would you like some Gerry Anderson news today?
Well, as it's a special birthday episode, go on.
Okay. Gerry Anderson birthday.
Newsy news. Yeah, right. I'll leave.
Stop. Good.
It's much too long.
So, as I may have mentioned in response to Hannah's email earlier on, Thunderbird's Terror from the Stars should be shipping out to you this week, the CD version, and the book will follow shortly after. We are ramping up our publishing efforts and machinery, so expect a slightly more ordered and organised and synchronised release of the following one, which will be 5 Star 5 next month, which will be very exciting, and more samples of that will be out very soon.
Cool.
Also, shortly after Terror from the Stars begins shipping, we will put our next audio and publishing release up, which is going to be Stingray.
Yes.
So we've heard some recording of that this week. Fantastic cast. Some Anderson names, some non-Anderson names in there.
Okay. They're Anderson names now.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yeah. But ones you'll be familiar with, some you might not be. They're all great, though, and they've done a fantastic job. So that is very, very exciting. This coming Friday, we have another flash sale. It's 40% off this secret item. But if you are on our email newsletter list, you will get notification on Thursday, so you get to beat everybody else to it. So you may wish to subscribe there if you're not already, but keep an eye out during the day on Thursday, and you'll get a link to this rather exciting and quite significant flash sale deal.
Cool.
Did you know, Richard, that there's another Gerry Anderson related day coming up next month?
Next month, in July?
Yes.
Oh, it's not July the 10th, is it?
It is, which makes it...
July the 10th day?
Which shows day?
Captain Scarlet?
Yes, Captain Scarlet Day.
Captain Scarlet, yeah.
Captain Scarlet Day on the 10th of July.
Yeah.
And we're going to be celebrating all things classic and new Captain Scarlet, which I think will be rather lovely.
Good.
If you've got any ideas about how we should celebrate Captain Scarlet Day this year, the inaugural one, then email us podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. We would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I know how I'll be celebrating it.
You've got
I'm going on holiday.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm having a week away from the 10th of July, so, good luck. Hope it goes well.
Thanks.
Be thinking of you.
What about your life-size Captain Scarlet cutout? What are you going to take it with
I'll
you?
still be here.
Oh.
No, I don't think so.
That can be your stand-in for the podcast that week. Very good,
exactly.
Thank you. And finally, for this week's Gerry Anderson news, there's some rather super news on the way.
Is there?
Yes. And I think there's a high probability... No, in fact, it's definite that you will be excited. And I think the news is going to give you a boost. That's all I can say for now. But, yes.
What? A boost? You're bringing out a range of chocolates? No?
Stand by for non-chocolatey news. Although, the chocolate box thing is kind of relevant. But, there's some news coming very soon, which yes, you'll be very pleased with, I think. It's looking rather good. So I suppose that brings us to the end of this week's... What? What's that coming from over there?
That was good news!
Very good. Very good. But yes, Paul Hyder.
Oh, Paul.
Thank you so much for
Paul.
This is the GNUs. Yeah, very good. Yeah, well, if you would like to better that, do send in your suggestions and your voice clips of you singing "That was the news, that was the news" to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and maybe we'll play it next time. Anyway, What do you want to know what's going on our Facebook group,
Well,
Jamie?
probably. It can't be stranger than that was the news.
No,
yeah.
that's right. Well, over on facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, Louise, our lovely moderator, asked, if you were a Gerry Anderson character, who would you be and why? Kim replied, John Tracy. I'd get to hang out in isolation for months at a time, finally get all those books that I need to read, and redirect emergency calls back home, and no one would ask me to go on rescue missions either. Fair enough. Wayne says he would be Virgil Tracy, for none other than the blindingly obvious reason that he gets to fly the uber-cool Thunderbird 2. Robert says he'd be Alec Freeman, Siggy and Whiskey, all the things I had to abandon years ago. So there's one for you, Jamie. Who would you be and why?
Well, as you know, I'm a bit of a Virgil fan because he's got a great balance of being a hero and an artist, and he plays the piano beautifully. He does also smoke and drink, doesn't he? Which I'm less into smoking.
Did in those days, didn't they? Really?
Well, I never saw Parker smoking.
No.
I don't
I
think.
bet he did, though.
Or maybe no, we did see Parker smoking, of course. I sort of, for some reason, I visualised him not smoking, but
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know.
Oh. All right.
Not Officer Oren. I mean, obviously.
Well, obviously. No, you wouldn't want to be Officer Oren.
No, who would?
Now, we also mentioned, I think it was last week or the week before, the Space Precinct Hill Street Blues mashup, and asked our listeners if they had any ideas. So over on our Facebook group, Steve came up with a great one, a mashup title sequence, Thunder Liverbirds.
Oh, wow.
Remember the Liverbirds?
Yes,
No?
I do.
Yeah. I can't remember the cast, 1970s. Liverpool sitcom. Tom Hodden says, how about a mashup of The Professionals with a slowed down shot of an SPV rather than a Capri smashing through a window? Nice. And he also suggests Firefly XL5.
Good, that's an interesting one.
Yeah. Paul Hyder says, Lost in Space 1999. Paul G, everybody loves Sting Raymond.
Oh, wow. That's...
Yeah. Good, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly something.
And one of my favourites, Rebecca, says, Thunderbirds of a Feather. That's good, isn't it? So, Chris Dale, you got your work cut out there, mashing some of those up. Do send us your requests for Gerry Anderson theme tune and opening titles mashups, and I'll read some of those next time. What else have we got in our Facebook group? I think, John McDonald is continuing his tour through the Gerry Anderson universe. He says it was very nice hearing Richard reading out my thoughts on the first Gemini Force 1 audio on Pod 155, and I'm really enjoying reading the feedback on Thunderbird's Terror of the Stars, a roaring success it seems, and how exciting is it that work on the Stingray audio starts next week? He says, while I'm here, a few thoughts on Dick Spanner, which I finished recently. The highlight for me is Shane Rimmer's pithy delivery of Terry Adlam's take on a Raymond Chandler-esque Private Eye. Steve Begg's modelling and effects are lovely/wacky in equal measure, considering there was next to no budget. It's fantastic that Gerry took a chance on a project like this at that point in his career, and Dick Spanner stands as a testament to the sheer variety in this Anderverse that we all know and love. Network's presentation is as good as ever. You can watch the 2 series straight through or in the original 6-minute segments. I went with the latter, as the plot is a wee bit strange, to say the least. As ever, I love the galleries of the making of on the DVD extras, particularly some photos from the modelling workshops taken by a young intern who spent time with the team during production. Lucky guy. He says it's worth a look if you haven't tried Mr. Spanner and his politically incorrect cohort, Podsterons, though I recommend strong drink may help with the viewing, I'd say. Anyway, he saes, Secret Service next. Toodaloo for now. Let us know how you get on.
If you think that Spanner requires a bit of a dram of whiskey to watch, then you wait for the Secret Service.
That's right. Yes, that's true. Do head on over to Facebook and join the group there. Lots of fun stuff going on. At the moment, I think they're organising a table read of, I think it's a Terrorhawks episode, various scripts that they've got. Your opportunity to start in a Gerry Anderson production. Yeah. So pop along.
How lovely. What a lovely group they are.
Yeah.
Well done, Podsterons, for keeping it, what was it, the nicest place on the internet?
Yes, that's it.
That's the official status, as
exactly right,
ordained by the world president himself, I believe. So, congratulations.
That's right, yes. That actually happened.
Richard, would you like to cross to the other side of the Earth? Not the other side of the sun, to the mirror Earth, but just to the other side of the planet.
Yeah, why?
Well, I think there's somebody waiting in Australasia to have have a chat with us. It's Michael Shanks.
Yes. Great.
YouTuber, writer, director, actor, everything. And I've been watching his short films online since last week because they're rather lovely. But he's back to talk through more Anderson-y things, his thoughts on filmmaking and practical effects and all that kind of thing, and also to give us his very strange, very unusual meta view of what a Thunderbirds reboot could be if he was in charge.
Right.
I wonder what you'll think, Podsterons. Let us know. Here's Michael Shanks, part 2. Just to touch on your kind of career from, sat in your grand's bedroom watching Thunderbirds on a small telly to now. I did a little bit of reading around, and, you clearly had some musical creative influence from when you were a young'un, sort of, was it piano lessons from 5 and kind of learning a bit of school, kind of, school was a place where you started doing more filmmaking and kind of learning what directing was and that kind of thing. So, because we have a lot of listeners to the podcast who are professional filmmakers and amateur and hobbyists and people who'd love to try. We're always getting fantastic stuff sent in from, right from CGI artists to people who are making their own kind of stop motion. What was your sort of, journey from this is a little hobby I do at school to becoming a profession? If you had to do your kind of filmmaker comic book origin story in 5 minutes or less, good luck.
In a world where a boy had no friends.
That's always a great starting point. I'll make my own. Yeah.
Yeah. In a world, I'm sure, I'm sure somebody's made something called In a World all about. Well, yeah, my high school was really where I discovered that, a creativity. My creativity, I felt, was very nurtured there in a way that hadn't been in primary school. In New Zealand, I went to a very kind of strict private school, and it was like that. I started learning guitar in primary school. They had teachers at primary school, but I did that for 2 years at primary school and never knew my teacher's name because it was so awkward and frigid that it was like, oh, he hasn't introduced himself. Well, okay, well, I'll ask next time. And then the next lesson, I'm like, well, I can't ask now because that's rude that I don't already know his name.
That's very British of you, I'd say. That's a very British thing.
Yeah, I feel very in tune with the British. I know that sounds stupid to say, but yeah, as I said, my partner of 11 years is British, and my favorite band is probably Blur, followed by like Radiohead. So, I'm maybe one of those Anglophile freaks. But that was my primary school. Even the creative stuff was very, like rigid. And then I went to this high school that was, which was a public school. I got a scholarship to my primary school in New Zealand, and it was a bit posh. And then I went to where, my family was better suited, which was kind of, a public school in Australia. And there was like a rock band, and you could join the rock band and like play. Oh, I can be in the school band and not be playing Bach. This is great. I'm just playing, like Muse covers or whatever, like funny teenage music you're into. And there was a theater department. And that was, I felt like, where I really got to, I started kind of performing, and it turned out I had a knack for that. Not that I'm performing now, but it was just that like, I found I had a sense of comedy and a sense of timing, and then I started doing a bit of directing in that school, and I didn't really do too much filmmaking there, but I felt like the theater stuff that I was doing really made me think, oh, this is great. And then in my spare time, I was learning VFX tutorials, just because, as said, as a kid, I was obsessed with this stuff, and I don't even know, I must have just stumbled upon it one day and realized like, oh, I can watch this in 45 minutes. I could make my toy Pikachu explode in After Effects. So, I pirated After Effects and set and filmed my Pikachu and that I had and made it blow up. And that just started this massive hobby of mine of just going through all these VFX tutorials, because it's not like I had any, dating prospects or anything. And so in my spare time, I was just, ideating upon, filming technique and visual effects. And then at school, I, was drama captain and was, performing all these plays and directing the school plays. And then there was a little competition on an American video game website. It was like an online magazine called The Escapist Magazine. It's still around. And they did a film competition. And I thought, I'm going to make a short, I'm going to make an entry to this. And I wrote this thing, and I roped a couple of friends in to come and act in it. And, I filmed it and edited it, did some VFX, and it won the competition, which was great because the prize was a contract turning that entry into the pilot episode of a web series. And so I was 17. It was my final year of high school. And I had this contract all of a sudden whereby every fortnight you are legally obligated to produce an action comedy episode. And then it will be uploaded on this website. And this is before YouTube, or just maybe when YouTube's like literally just starting. And people, this magazine had an audience. So not only was I getting paid to figure out filmmaking, which I was so thrilled with, and really had no guidance. I could just do whatever I wanted. Nice. But also there was an audience. So to 17 to 19, I was putting stuff up every 2 weeks, and people were watching it and becoming engaged in the online stories and that sort of thing. And, I could never rewatch that show. I think I think I would turn into like a gelatinous blob. But that was really how I figured it out. And then from there, turned that into, some people, kind of like me online. I'll start making some sketches for YouTube once that kind of show was finished. And so people started watching that, and I managed to be fortunate to have some YouTube stuff go viral. And from there, I just, kind of started that thing, then met people in the film industry, and we kind of made some stuff together, other indie creators, people like the great guys from Late Night Films. And we kind of made some cool stuff together. And from there, people took notice, and some things got up and some things didn't. And, we kind of kept going.
Awesome. I mean, that's a cool break to get. I mean, especially in a nascent YouTube world, to be audience building like that. Because I've seen a couple of your kind of sort of comedy short type pieces, and in particular this morning, actually, I stumbled across your, I think it's your Force Awakens George Lucas special edition trailer.
Yeah.
So there's everything from creating your own stuff to, taking the piss out of others, which is a great combination.
That Force Awakens trailer was fun because that was it's in short, I thought I had a clever idea for a parody of that trailer within like 24 hours of that trailer coming out. And I think within like 30 hours of it coming out, I had finished it. I canceled a date with my girlfriend. I was like, she had like literally driven to my house and parked, and I called her and she was in the car, and I said like, oh, I can't do anything. I got an idea. And she is the exact sort of person that's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Do that. I'll see you later. And it's great, Oh,
you're lucky there. Bloody hell. There's a lot of people who'd, that would be the end.
I mean, she's just let me go away for a week by myself to like literally redraft a movie about a guy who's worried his relationship with his girlfriend is going to kill him. She couldn't be more cool.
That's particularly interesting and appropriate or inappropriate.
Yeah. But then that video was, because it was released so quickly within, I think it was a funny idea, and it was released so quickly within the time frame where everybody was watching this trailer and thinking about it, that it kind of exploded online. And I used that, the reason I bring it up in terms of talking like how, of like things to get noticed maybe, is I had, in the kind of year leading up to that, I'd made the biggest project of my life, which was a short film. It was only 7 minutes, but it was like, I was really going for it. It's like really extravagant visually. It was quite, it's like a 7-minute long silent film that starts with like silent comedy about a spaceman crashing on Earth with a time machine, and it opens with a big like chase scene through a meteorite field. And I, did the VFX and directed that and composed all the music. And it was like this baby of mine that I really was so proud of. And I didn't know how to release it because I thought, oh, what if nobody sees this now? This has been my blood, sweat, and tears project for so long. And when I just made this like a dumb, doofy Star Wars video, suddenly everybody was looking at my YouTube channel. And it wasn't my plan, but I suddenly thought, oh crap, I got to release that short film. And so I released that, the following, again, within 24 hours of that video launch.
Perfect timing.
And it got so many people watching it. And actually that was the project that I think, it was like the next day I got a call from the Weinstein Company, which, back in the day, that was an exciting thing. And,
that was a good thing.
I was living in my own basement in Melbourne. Like that was a strange call to get. I didn't know how they got my number. And that week I got calls from everybody in America because I've told the story before on podcasts. If anybody's a Michael Shanks completionist and they're listening to this, I'm sorry for repeating myself. But I get asked quite a bit sometimes about like, how do you find reps? How do you find agents? And this was kind of my way because that week, people were calling me and saying that your film, it went around the town. That's why we call it here. Your short film went around the town, and oh my gosh, it's fantastic. A lot of kind of weird Americans blowing smoke up your bum.
Yeah.
And like a week or two later, I was in LA, and that was the trip where I was, kind of being interviewed by all the agents, and I kind of chose some agents over there, and that was kind of how I got repped in the States, which, there was some sort of plan, not a plan, but just like a recognition of like, oh crap, the iron's suddenly hot, I got to strike, which is the thing I've like failed to do, so many times since. I have so many instances of cold irons striking, but that was one that really worked out well for me.
Awesome. And so from there to Wizard of Oz, I guess, that's a kind of sizable series commission, which you wrote, directed, and starred in. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And edited. I think Chris and I edited that together. We kind of did different cuts, and I composed the score did
everything.
Well, I did a lot. You did a lot of the VFX, most of the VFX probably, but I got paid my writer's fee. That was the only fee of that I got, and that was, but that was because it hopefully looks like a bigger budget project than it was, because it was actually that short film that I'd made that I spoke about got the attention of Screen Australia, and they reached out and said, hey, we've seen your stuff, we think you'd be a good candidate for some funding. We have funding, available. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, I don't really know, for anybody that's not from a place that has sort of government funded arts initiatives, that's kind of how it goes in Australia. And so they said, we could fund like a web series if you had an idea. And I, had this idea for a wizard kind of comedy. It's an idea I'd had for a while. And I went away and I wrote that with a friend of mine, Nicholas Issel, and pitched him, and they liked it. But they said, the max budget we have is 350,000 Australian. And, you're indie, and I'd written 90 minutes of pretty full on special effects driven, like fantasy stuff. And they said, we really like the scripts, but you can't do it for this budget because you have to pay everybody. Like I was used to that short film that I'd made, which looked hopefully quite big budget. I self-funded for $6,000 to $7,000. I think it was $6,000 Australian. But that's because I didn't pay anybody, because everybody was, just enjoying working on a short film or wanting to work on the short film. So that money just went to like materials and gear hire and that sort of thing. But when you have finance appropriately, obviously, you pay everybody because it's a job. And I didn't want to not pay everybody, but suddenly realized like, oh yeah, suddenly this huge amount of money, which for me was like, oh my God, it's $350,000. You could like do anything for that. It immediately goes out the window because we have, 45 speaking characters, and just the union, day rates for actors is such. And so, I played the lead character in that show, and I think that saved $20,000 because we didn't pay the lead actor then, because the only people we couldn't pay for were ourselves. So myself and Chris, the producer, one of the producers, we did 36 weeks of unpaid post-production work on it, whereby, we kind of got paid for, I got paid my writer's fee, and he got paid, I don't remember exactly, but, basically we got paid during production, and then we're just kind of happy to sacrifice a long time to make the show that we kind of wanted to make, which is not a tenable, that's a very privileged position to be in, because I could, I moved back into my mom's place to do that. So I didn't have to pay rent. I wasn't buying a lot of my own food. Like I didn't have a lot of expenses. I just wasn't making any money, but it didn't matter because my life literally became wake up, sit at a computer, edit, VFX, sleep, and repeat.
Repeat for.
So it was kind of a psychopathic thing to do.
Yeah, but it's sort of stuff that you have to do, and I think it's really good for people to, to hear about it, because.
Well, you have to do for that sort of genre. You don't necessarily have to do it for a housemate comedy, but as sort of said, like that's just not an idea that even though I'll watch a housemate comedy and love it, like that's just not an idea that I can think about creatively for a long time. It just kind of falls out of my brain. Yeah.
Well, sacrifices have to be made to try and do stuff, especially when you want to have a bit of creative control over it, which is, I guess, where you're succeeding across the board, in fact, because you're doing stuff for you. For the most part, I think. Now, just to bring us right up to date, Michael, before we sort of wrap things up and you can plug anything you like, Rebooted is the thing that Ben Page sent me initially and said, we've got to speak to this guy. He's awesome. And and it is very, very cool. Can you just tell me about what just a very quick précis of Rebooted, what it is, and then I think we should just talk about this, because you've got like the ultimate combination of stop motion and live action, and it really is about, you know, old school versus new school. So give us a précis, and then we'll just have a quick chat about Rebooted.
Definitely. Well, you know, we started this chat and I was talking about the ideas that I want to go towards are A, ones that I'd be really jealous of if somebody else came up with, and B, ones that like are premises whereby in my head, like you can sum them up in a sentence or two and you get it and you've never seen that premise before. And I should be pretty well rehearsed in this one. So Let's go. So, Rebooted tells the story of a stop-motion animated skeleton who can no longer find work in modern Hollywood because he's an out-of-date special effect. Aside from my slight stumble between visual and special effect, that we,
yeah, we can forgive that. No, they're very well practiced. It felt more natural with the little stumble in there.
That's
not too polished. That's great. So it's really charming. It's a really sweet little story, and the kind of the story and method side of the kind of the old versus the new. Had you done stop motion stuff prior to this?
No, and which was quite intimidating, honestly, because I just didn't know how it was done, and I didn't do the animation. Obviously, we hired an animator, but it was a new process for me, and it's not just stop motion and the piece. You know, going back to like the tenets of what I want to do with my work is I really have two tenets, and one is did I say tenet or tenant? Anyway, the first one is premises you can sum up in a sentence or two that you can go like, oh, I haven't seen that before. And two is visuals I've never seen before. In a post CGI world, you can watch something like Doctor Strange, and that has visuals that are neat, but I kind of sometimes look at that stuff and just go like, they just did everything like everything's achievable now in a digital thing. But I want to see new stuff, not just kind of more stuff. And with Rebooted, I realized, well, that's a premise. I came up with the premise first and thought it was kind of neat, and then thought, hold on, that means you could show the whole history of Hollywood special and visual effects coexisting in the same frame. And that was something I'd never seen before. That's something I kind of wanted to see. And it was also something that made me go, that means I get to do all of those special effects and I get to hire people that can do them, you know, assuming we can get this made. So as well as it's a live action film, and the main character is stop motion, but they exist within our world. You know, the gag is that all special and visual effects characters are actors. And so they go to auditions where they're auditioned by human casting managers and directors and human producers. But then the main character is a stop motion animated skeleton. His kind of posse of friends include an animatronic velociraptor, an old timey 2D animation that exists within a cell paper frame. We've got an early CGI like Liquid Metal Man, whose name in the script was early 90s Liquid Metal Man. And what else is there? I'm sure I'm forgetting a key thing, but there's like a Creature from the Black Lagoon style suit, but we're saying the suit's the character, so it's like kind of just like this limp hollow suit that just kind of flops about because it actually has no innards. Because that was the other thing that I found fun about the premise is I realized like, okay, cool, then you can make essentially, if you have a team of them, they can have kind of superpowers based on the kind of fourth wall breaking constraints of their production. So there's a moment in the script where the animatronic dinosaur kind of creeps up and scares a guard, much like the Velociraptor from Jurassic Park. But the guard just unplugs it because it's animatronic and it can just like, and that's how you defeat that. There was the other kind of tentpole of special and visual effects creatures that I wanted to put in there was a marionette, but just in the different iterations of the script, it just kind of fell over. But I was thinking, because the power of that is it can tangle somebody up in its string. It's like that's kind of a fun way, because I want to put a little action sequence in there where everybody does something based on their kind of abilities. I was thinking a lot of Cabin in the Woods. I don't know if you've seen Cabin in the Woods, but at the it's this kind of meta horror movie whereby in an underground facility, there's all the horror monsters from every genre, and they do this ritual where they kind of release one every year to kill a bunch of teenagers in the woods. And at the end, that the facility is overrun, that, the containment breach, the SWAT guys go in to take out the monsters, but every monster comes in. And I was just thinking, like, I love the idea of doing that, but what if all the monsters were from different eras of filmmaking?
Mm-hmm.
And whilst in that scene you have, the dragon breathes fire and the sort of mer person, drowns somebody or such and such, like, what if it was a claymation character sticks their fist in the fire so it kilns so they can punch harder? What if it's a marionette that can tangle somebody up a string? What if there's a 2D animation that can turn 90 degrees so they're invisible along their Z-axis? Like, stuff like that really really charms me. And that was although it was only a short, I tried to jam pack as much of that sort of stuff in as I could within the 13 kind of minute length of the script, whilst also hopefully trying to be, again, have a degree of pathos to it. This is me being like, here's what I hope to do because I'm so clever. But the idea was to that's all the fun and games, but hopefully you identify with the story of somebody who's basically past their prime. The other thing that I was thinking of with the idea was the wrestler starring Mickey Rourke. Just so the way that we shot the film, I was thinking visually of like an indie drama, like handheld, kind of natural light, a bit grimy, added some grain to it. Because I just thought, like, I want to watch Mickey Rourke's The Wrestler, but he's a stop motion animated skeleton. Like, that's a funny movie.
That's the way you should pitch it, I think. It's too late now, you made it. So
I think that was the other sentence that I would say.
Okay. It's a good sentence. Well, it is really lovely, and I would strongly encourage our listeners to go and watch it. Just search for Rebooted Michael Shanks on YouTube.
Or Rebooted short film. I think it's the
Rebooted short film. Perfect. There you go. That's what it's do. There's a real kind of meta side to a lot of the stuff that you put out. It seems, crossing worlds that wouldn't normally be crossed. Be that the fantasy and wizardry world with normal Australian life, I say, or in this with old out of time monsters and creatures that don't normally live in the real world. And it's a lovely mixture of stuff, and I'm sure our listeners will enjoy it. If you had the budget given to you, Michael, as a final question, and you were told, okay, so we want you, Michael Shanks, to remake Thunderbirds. And it doesn't matter where you pitch it at, kind of age-wise and all that kind of stuff, but you can either recreate it perfectly as Super Mario Nation, as it was done in the 1960s, or you can use complete different toolbox. You can go live action, VFX, whatever you want. There's no right answer here, by the way. But what would you choose?
Because I definitely wouldn't, CGI up the Thunderbirds or something. And it's funny, like I'm sure you've discussed this before, but I would be interested to know of your relationship to the Jonathan Frakes film, which I've never actually seen. But I kind of just love Jonathan Frakes because I'm a big Star Trek kind of guy, and I think he's like a funny, like sort of like celebrity that could only exist in the 90s. But I really like it.
Yeah, I mean, I can summarize the relationship with the following sound. Yeah, 95%, I would say, of classic Thunderbirds fans can't stand the film.
I've never seen it. It just didn't look like, as a Thunderbirds fan and being probably of a relatively appropriate age to be the target audience.
Yeah, you probably would have been. No, it was Thunder Spy Kids.
Yeah, okay. But okay, if I were rebooting it, I think that I would. Okay, obviously, I'm trying to give you a really real answer. But I've obviously just been pitched this question. I would definitely.
I like the surprise.
I'm not just leaning into this because we just spoke about it, but I would definitely be trying to do a meta thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe. I obviously have made Rebooted, which is kind of similar, but I would maybe wonder if you could do a thing where they are puppets or they play, but they're in a real world that's surrounded by humans, like live action people. And I wouldn't do it as a dimensional rift or something. I always feel like that's a bad way to do that. I just like start it in the real world, and those characters are just puppets. Or, maybe it's Toy Story or something, and it's about, it's about a young Jamie Anderson coming into the kind of, blowing dust off the old puppets, but they kind of come back to life, or, something like that. Or and there's some sort of adventure that they help out with. I think that would be the way to go, because I think that the idea of Thunderbirds, if you strip out the marionettes, is still a good idea, but a much less interesting one. So I think that the form is so important and the artistry on display is so important that you wouldn't want to lose that, because otherwise it would be so easy to make it probably like what I imagine a live action film is, which is just kind of like a James Bondy teen movie for kids.
Pretty much.
So we wouldn't want to lose that, but also I think that would be very niche if you just kept it as that. So you have to find some. Dan Harmon used to say this on his podcast a lot, which I listened to years ago, where he said that he believed, in the sort of art where the painting could include the frame. And I really like that. I like including the frame in my work. And I think that'd be a way to do it.
Okay. That is a great analysis. I like that. We'll take that quote as the subtitle for the podcast episode.
Here's a take. So this has been kind of done. I feel like this is sort of like what, like maybe even like Johnny English is like. But what if there were like, a big crisis in the real world, and we've got kind of our human modern spy agents that have to kind of sort it out. But we need some experts. We need the old team, and in come the Thunderbirds. The puppets, and they have to work with a kind of, it's a bit like Spy almost, but there's the kind of cool, modern, sleek, sexy spy who's played by Idris Elba, and he doesn't want to work with these puppets, but over the course of the film, they find some value, the old and new working together. Something like that could be kind of funny.
That sounds very much like the Michael Shanks version of Thunderbirds, for sure. The old and new coming together. So you've heard it here first, Podsterons. That's Michael's vision. You can send your checks to Michael Shanks' secret location just outside Melbourne, Australia. So, Michael, if people want to find your work or find you on social media, how do they do that? Where's best to follow you?
Well, you can see all my work on YouTube, but you can kind of follow me in any social media platform: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, with my username, which is, for strange reasons, TimFed. TimFed. That is my sort of alias, I suppose.
Okay. Is that one of those things where you set up an email address when you're young, or use a username and then it just sticks, even though it was kind of meaningless or silly?
It's exactly that. And the actual email address of my YouTube account, which is kind of my most important social media platform, is linked to, is an even much worse childhood email account. Okay. And often when I get sent stuff and I accept a calendar invitation, it says that account is following, and then I get emails from the people. It's like, sorry, who's this? Who's this person? This person's.
Oh, I think I may have got one of those.
Princess 69. Oh, yeah, that's me.
Excellent. Okay. Well, don't search for that specifically, but TimFed. Or just search Michael Shanks online and go and watch Rebooted immediately. Michael, it's been really great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Enjoy your
writing. Hang out.
Yes, with a beer. Well, I did warn you it was an unusual suggestion for the Thunderbirds reboot. So what do you think, Podsterons? Would you watch Michael Shanks' Meta Birds Are Not Go thing? Who knows?
I would.
Okay, fair enough. There you go. You got one vote, Michael. I'm not sure how many others, but maybe you're onto something there. Let's see. Anyway, Michael, thank you for dropping out of your writing time to give us that lovely chat. It was a great time having a chat with you, and he got through a couple of beers while we were having a chat,
Well, quite right too.
He must have been watching Dick Spanner or the Secret Service.
That's right.
Now we're going to cross back to the UK next week.
Okay.
And don't worry, Richard, I'm not putting you to work. It's me again.
Oh, phew.
This time, we've got another celebrity mastermind champion.
Really? Oh, have we?
Yeah, so we've already had Samira Ahmed. No, not Fred Housego.
Oh, okay.
Such an unusual surname, isn't that? I was a kid at my school called Michael Housego. I wonder if they're related.
I wonder.
Anyway, no. Yeah. So we've had Samira Ahmed before, whose specialist subject was Space 1999, and she won Celebrity Mastermind.
Yep.
Next week, this chap's Celebrity Mastermind subject was Thunderbirds.
Oh.
You may know him from Homes Under the Hammer.
Oh.
It's TV's Martin Roberts.
Great.
And
fantastic.
I instantly offended Martin when we began our conversation. As you know,
dear.
Richard, it's one of the things I'm very good at.
Yes.
Because he was in his man cave when he was doing the interview, and over his shoulder I could see a puppet. And obviously, because there aren't that many puppets around, I thought, that's a replica, isn't it? So I said, oh, who made that? And then I reeled off a couple of names of replica makers. And Martin was mortally offended and said, replica? That's not a bloody replica, mate. And he, no, it was a real one. It's a genuine screen-used guest character puppet, which he'll talk about on the interview.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. How to offend an interviewee within 30 seconds of starting the chat. Whoops.
Well,
sorry, Martin.
Yes,
but we'll look forward to that next week.
Yeah, absolutely right. How exciting. Meanwhile, over on Twitter, people have been hashtagging us Gerry Anderson Podcast, tagging me, Richard M. James, him, I'm Jamie Anderson, and him over there just icing the cake, Chris Dalek. For example, an objectionable tone tweeted, seeing today's edition of Gerry Anderson Podcast, I can't quite shake the idea that the guest, Michael Shanks, is the Stargate SG-1 actor, but it is a different one, I think.
It is a different one. This is the error that people made, I've noticed, but who cares?
Indeed. Yeah.
Bit of fun.
Jeff Owen says, listening to Jamie Anderson talk about how nice a person Wanda Ventham is in episode 153 of the Gerry Anderson Podcast, I wonder if there's anyone in the Gerry Anderson universe, living or dead, that Jamie hasn't met and would love have done to have done. Would have loved to.
Right. That was living or dead,
I think that sort of makes sense. Yes. Yeah. Anyone who didn't meet but wanted to?
Well, Barry Gray.
Ah, yeah.
The unassuming Barry Gray. I'm sure he would have been absolutely charming. And
yes,
and
that's
lovely.
right. Yeah.
So there's one for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that'll do me.
Yeah, Becca, after listening to the Terror from the Stars snippet, tweeted, truly fab! Everything comes together really well here. The cast are an absolute joy, and I can't wait to hear this in full. Donald tweeted, I received my pre-order. It was an awesome production. The voices were pretty good. The story was great. I can't wait for other Thunderbirds audio dramas in the near future. Great job to the cast and crew. And Tony tweeted, the first records I ever bought were audio episodes on singles. There was one where you turned it over and played the parts yourself. I think it was Stingray. What, just a blank side of the disc, and you just had to say it? I don't understand that.
No,
but sounds interesting.
Yeah, not sure about that.
So Tony, drop us a line, podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk. Tell us more about that. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah,
more. Not quite sure how it would work. Yeah, exactly. So there we are. Yeah, so do get in touch via Twitter, Facebook, email. You know the addresses by now. Drop them in. I read them out. Bosh.
Gosh, that's a great catchphrase.
Yeah. Isn't it?
Drop them in, I'll read them out. Bosh. Lovely. And you only said you knew the address by now because you'd forgotten it, didn't you? You'd forgotten it.
Yeah, what is it again?
Podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk.
That's it. It's only been 3 years.
It has. Now, something we've not quite had 3 years of.
Oh, yeah.
Is Chris Dale's Randomiser, because he wasn't in the first episode.
Yeah, true.
So I think next week is the third anniversary of the Randomiser. I may be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. So it's Chris's pre-birthday Randomiser, where he comes along with his Randomiser, which selects at random a random Gerry Anderson episode, which Chris then watches and gives his at random, yes, absolutely, and gives his not so random thoughts and observations on that episode. It's it's a fan favourite section of the podcast.
Oh, isn't it?
Yeah. So I should probably stop sort of rambling on. And let you listen to the Randomiser now?
Yes. Well, come on then.
Well, Chris has finished the cake, so okay, Chris, over to you.
You rang, milady?
Yes, Parker. What's today's episode?
Desperate Intruder.
Thank you, Parker. You may start the episode.
Very good, milady.
Gosh, this dress is comfy.
So, welcome back to Thunderbirds on the Randomiser. For the third anniversary of the Gerry Anderson Podcast, we have Desperate Intruder, and this is an episode that I was actually surprised to find is very popular among Thunderbirds fans. When I was first sort of exploring the worlds of Thunderbirds online fandom, which would have been 20 years ago now, it has grown on me quite a lot since then.
National Rescue.
to the point where I really do see what people like about it so much.
Members seek further glory in the hunting of ancient treasures.
And here's the Hood filling us in on this week's story.
You will fail.
I love the idea that he spends so much of his time in between appearances just sat on a chair. He's not even on like a throne, he's just on a basic gold, obviously, chair, just going, "International rescue. Oh, I hate them so much."
They and their expedition will be buried at the bottom of Lake Anasta.
I'm not quite sure how he came by this information.
My half-brother, you will help me.
Because it's not like he's now calling up Kirano to find out exactly what they're doing now. Where's Kirano gone? He seems to already know all about this, so...
It is useless to resist.
I don't know, maybe he read it in the paper again.
The secret of the lake must be mine. Kirano!
But it does sort of launch us right into the action. We don't really need to waste time being told how the Hood found out about any of this.
Does the International Rescue Expedition set off?
Because he's busy tormenting poor old Kirano again in another fairly intense scene for this show.
To make a survey of the temple.
And don't forget to save me a gem or two, Tintin. Everybody's giving them as Christmas presents this year.
Right, Scott. Anything special you would like, John?
Oh, don't ask him that.
Well, I think I'd rather have a dirty old bar of gold.
Do you think...
Jeff's actually looking at John with an expression of, "Who the hell let you down here? Get back in your space cage."
Tracy, it seems...
Oh, someone actually asked John what he wanted out of life. That's rather sad. I don't think anyone's ever asked him that before.
Those fetching new swimsuits you've had sent on, Tintin.
Oh.
Well, vacation or not, you deserve a break, both of you. Kirano.
Because Lord knows out of all of us, Tintin is the one who does the most work.
Ready.
Good. Virgil's ready for launching, Tintin. You and Brains better make your way to the passenger elevator. Your father and I are going to the end of the strip to watch the launching.
Very nice close-up of Tintin there. She looks very pretty.
For the launch.
Yes, Father.
John? I don't know. Just go and sit in a corner somewhere. Yeah, I don't think John... It's one of his few appearances on Earth, and I'm not sure he appears again after this. We'll have to keep an eye out for him.
Only 10 short days, Kirano, and then she'll be back.
That is what I keep telling myself, Mr. Tracy.
What's that belt Jeff's wearing there?
These fears.
Come now.
It looks almost like a sort of...
A beautiful lake, miles...
Judo belt? Karate belt?
Safer.
Is Jeff a black belt in something? Here we go. Here's a big old lorry rolling through the desert. And at the wheel we find...
Sand. Sand, nothing but sand.
It's rough and coarse and irritating, and it gets everywhere. I do like the look of deserts in Thunderbirds, though, because you don't really need to add a whole lot to make it look convincing. You just need a sand pit, and yet there's something about just these endless expanses of desert in Thunderbirds always look really nice. We had that in The Uninvited as well, and of course there's that beautiful Lake Anasta.
Oh, look, Brains! The pyramids!
Oh, there they are. No zombites living underneath those pyramids. And of course, those are the pyramids that she will later forget seeing in Thunderbird 6.
And we're well up to time, too.
Just think, Brains. In a few more hours, we'll be down there.
But she does go through quite a bit of trauma in this episode, so I wouldn't blame her for forgetting.
From what I've heard, he's quite a character. The best man in his field.
Now look.
And that field would be...
That's not the part. You've got to move fast. We mustn't let the professor know that you're connected with International Rescue in any way.
That's right, Virgil. And if he asks, we came out to the Middle East by charter flight.
All set, Brains?
Which is why Tintin has got an Air-Turanian handbag on her, which is quite a nice touch. Not only is it a reuse of an old prop, it also fits in with their cover story for this little outing. Oh, and Thunderbird 2 coming into land, which always looks lovely. especially when it opens the pod and you get these extreme close-ups on Thunderbird 2's hull, all those plates and bits that I don't really know what they do, and I'm sure the people who built the models don't really know what they're supposed to do. But that's one of the things I think we all love about Thunderbird 2, is we don't quite know how it all works, and we also accept that any episode could introduce a random new feature. And this is Pod 5 loading out. One of those lovely desert jeeps, which looks very similar to the ones seen in The Uninvited, towing a caravan. So we're already in rather unfamiliar territory here, but it's very nice to be focusing on international rescue, but in a story that we can already see is going to be something a bit out of the norm, a bit unusual. It's not going to revolve around the sort of high-tech thing going wrong and needing saving thing, or the alternative was normally, in later episodes, Lady Penelope spy stuff.
I'm on my way home again.
Right, Virgil. You keep in touch.
But here we have something that's a bit different, but also not the kind of bit different that the series would later get stuck in a rut in with Penelope.
And now to meet up with Professor Blakely.
He should be at the crossroads 3 miles along this road. He's coming down the other desert highway.
Here we go. A bit of stereotyping here with what's this driver's name? Hassan Ali. Luxury taxis, distance no object. Doors optional. Oh dear.
By Jingo, what was that?
Nothing, Master. Nothing.
Well, I just hope we make it, that's all. Got an appointment I'm rather anxious to keep.
And another wonderful Peter Dineley, silly British gentleman character in the mould of Sir Jeremy Odge. Yes, Professor Blakely.
Oh, it's beautifully cool in here.
Yeah.
Brains and Tintin have already set up the caravan with the minibar and the air conditioning.
12 in the shade outside.
What on earth was that?
Professor Blakely, I presume.
Hello there. What?
Oh, why did they bother calling him Professor Blakely? Can't they just call him Professor Stereotype?
Sure glad to meet you too, old boy. May I introduce you to my assistant, Miss Tintin Kirano?
You're delighted, I'm sure. Charming.
And yet it's so delightful, these throwbacks to what even at the time must have been a slightly bygone era, but the thought that this kind of archetype will be
Drop down to the old lake and make
doing the rounds in the future.
Let me just pay off this cabbie and I'll be right with you.
Lots of old what?
What's the damage then, old boy?
Gentlemen, it's just, it's lovely. I love this stuff. I also love that all of the pilots are sort of Biggles models at London Airport.
Good safari. Oh, yes.
Oh, he's got a picture of a lady in the back of the cab there.
Perhaps you would care to come into the caravan, sir, for a cooling drink before we set off.
Yes, but I dare say the treasure can wait. Don't think anyone's going to steal it from under our noses, eh?
We also, I don't think, find out how Brains and Tintin and the Professor all got onto this treasure at the same time. We just have to accept that they do. Meanwhile, the Hood is loading out his submarine from his big desert lorry thing, and I love this submarine. It may not be so stealthy because it's a sort of gunmetal grey blue, but I love the design of it. It's so simple. It's just so basic, but it works really well. And who is it who owns this this prop nowadays? Is it Peter Jackson owns that model? He's a lucky guy, if so. And going back to unusual things about the setup for this episode, I also really like that it's Brains and Tintin.
Look, Professor. It's the Anasta pipeline. That means the lake must be quite near.
I feel that these are two characters who work really well together. They complement each other so well. And
Professor, well, do just that.
To be honest, it's one of the more underrated partnerships of Thunderbirds, and certainly by the end of the series, Tintin in particular is may as well not be there anymore because she's so underused. So it's nice that
there it is.
That not only do we have a focus on non-rescue stuff, at least to start with. We're not stuck with the regular, the Tracy family and or Penelope and Parker. We've got Brains, Tintin, and of course the Hood, who is already in the lake with his submarine.
My friends are just in time. In fact, dead on time.
Oh. And I believe we've had the Hood appear on the Randomiser before in Crywolf, and the Hood is an interesting villain because he's not the sort of full-scale, genuinely terrifying, sinister presence that Captain Black consistently is in Scarlet, but he's also not the sort of silly knockabout villains of earlier shows. He's something in between.
The temple for over 100 years.
And very often in this show, when they try to present the Hood as genuinely sinister and scary, it really works. And
Sure, and bring me back something interesting.
Crywolf, oddly enough, is an example of that, and this episode as well is. So, yeah, it's all good stuff so far. And now we're into some lovely underwater swimming stuff. Ah, it's pretty. And I get the feeling that most people kind of dread underwater scenes in live-action TV shows and films because it all goes so slowly.
There it is. It's the temple.
Yay, they found it. Didn't take long. But with the puppets swimming...
Now, be very careful, Tintin. Professor Blakely was right.
We don't really have to experience that slowdown because they're not moving in human real time, they're moving in puppet time. So it's just lovely. There's so much creativity, there's so much attention to detail in all of this underwater stuff.
Good. They're going to lead me straight to the treasure.
Yeah, well, it doesn't look like the temple was particularly well hidden. It's amazing no one's discovered all this before. I mean, I don't know. I'd love to... Maybe I've waffled over it, but I would love to know the backstory of this temple. Did Professor Blakely just wake up one day and go, I say, what? I suspect there's a sort of ruined temple down there. Lots of treasure, don't you know? And maybe we'd go have a gander at that. And as a kid... I know now, obviously, that there's an aquarium between the camera and the set, but as a kid, it never occurred to me.
The problem is...
that the puppets weren't in water.
...contains the treasure.
Let's try that one over there.
Yeah. Let's try until we find the one that it's in. Oh, so many ruined bits of statues and pillars and columns all over the place. It's... Again, by now, having done so much like this in previous shows, they must have had so much stuff to hand to just throw in here.
Sample of it back to the professor.
Yay, underwater pickaxe action. It's not the most thrilling, but it does paint the picture of archaeology in the Thunderbirds world being terribly easy.
Oh, Professor, I'm going to bring you up a sample from the central column.
A jolly good show. You bring it up and we'll have a look at it before lights out.
What do you contribute to this expedition exactly? Just to sort of stand there and go, oh, jolly good, yes, rather. Which actually is fine. I wish there were more people like that in the world.
They have found the treasure. But where? I think I can persuade them to tell me.
This is the most easy expedition in the history of archaeology. It's quite astonishing. Brains has brought a piece of the column back to the caravan.
Look there, Professor. What's that?
Mr. Brains, Miss Kirano, I'm glad to say that the Anasta expedition is a success.
Hoorah!
Located the lost treasure.
Yay.
Brains, we must radio Mr. Tracy right away and tell him.
How long did that take? 10 minutes? Well, this is why you need Brains on the case.
Oh, beautiful. I always knew my theory was correct.
Oh, it's your theory, was it?
Oh, boy. Tomorrow, I can collect lots more evidence.
I like as well that he's not obsessed with, like, we've got to collect all the treasure. It's more, I can collect evidence to prove my scientific theory. But who's this at the door? Who'd be calling on Brains at this hour? Oh, Well, it's a suspicious-looking character.
What do you want?
Who looks a lot like the Hood, and there's those glowing eyes. And here is where the Hood gets very sinister. It was already sinister when he was cutting his way into Williams's room in Creighton-Ward, but here, actually seeing him confronting one of our heroes, one of the members of International Rescue, which he so rarely does. Yeah, knocks out brains. That is interesting, actually, in this show, that the Hood is kept so far out of
the lost treasure in the lake.
Out of contact with the heroes.
Did he tell you this?
He reported in before turning in for the night.
It's quite strange that the arch enemy of a show would just be, so rarely. They would be, so rarely be in the same shot, same scene with each other.
Say them our congratulations then. Why, Grandma, what's the matter? You look like you'd swallowed your egg spoon.
I don't know what Tintin wants to go down hunting that treasure for. She's got enough pretty jewelry already.
But they're not going down there to rob the temple. It's all in the interest of science. Now, whatever they find goes back with Professor Blakely to the International Museum of Archaeology.
Well, back to work, I suppose. I'm going up to the lounge to wait for the next call.
What exactly is it we do in between rescues?
Pleased with themselves.
And there was John at the breakfast table with Gordon. And here we go. Oh my goodness. This is one of the... Even today, this sight of brains buried in the sand still gets to me. It's so...
Tintin, what?
I don't know, it's so sad. It's so... You don't hurt brains. It's like...
Professor...
Where? In certain shows, you have like a character who's so sweet and innocent, they're almost like a puppy, and you don't hurt the puppy. And that's how I feel seeing brains buried in the sand up to his neck like this.
Staring eyes. What happened? Oh!
Especially with the makeup on the lips, how dry and cracked they are.
I've gotta get some water.
Yeah, it's not like Brains is like one of our regular man of action type characters who's, always first into the fray. No, he's the tech support, and he's a bit more relatable than the Tracys. Oh, and there's Tintin just in a sort of catatonic trance. The Professor has obviously been physically assaulted. He's got cuts and bruises on his head.
Professor!
That's him basically out of the story, unfortunately.
It's no use. He must have got them too.
And again, it's almost more interesting that that happens off screen. We don't see
what you do then,
the Hood and Tintin and Blakely having those scenes together. We see the effect of the Hood's eyes on Brains, and we can surmise what happened when the Hood got to the other two.
Done with the others.
Especially with Blakely, when the lab is obviously being torn apart. He's obviously been
want some information?
Been hurled about the place.
Where is the treasure concealed in the underwater temple?
I've gotta have some water.
I'd be interested to know how they actually
I saw you come from that
did this scene as well. Would they have just buried a regular Brains puppet? Would they have buried him as the Hood has buried the real character? Or is this perhaps just a torso with a head?
Tell me where the gold is, and then I shall let you and your friends go.
I suspect it is probably just a full body puppet as normal.
Choice to make.
Oh, that's it. Brains has passed out.
I don't get it. Brains has never been late before. Look, Kirano, go and fetch Scott, will you?
Yes, Mr. Tracy.
You want any of your other sons? You have this John here. He might be able to provide a new insight into the situation. No, just Scott.
Do you read me?
That's strange as well. That's rather sad on a story that's so character-focused. You've got John there. Why don't you let him do something? And it's rather eerie as well, the shots of Tintin in a trance. The puppet just is not moving at all, not even the eyes.
I just don't understand it. Brains hasn't checked in yet, and he's overdue now by 14 minutes.
Well, it's certainly not like Brains to lose contact completely, like this. Father, it's...
Yes, it's the emergency signal. Right, that settles it. You better get out there, Scott, fast.
So that's... Who's that going to be? Tintin set that off? We don't know. It'd have to be Tintin, I presume, as the Professor wouldn't know anything about it, and Brains is otherwise occupied with sand.
All right, Scott. Virgil will be following you. Proceed at maximum speed.
You betcha, Father.
Also nice as well that there's enough story in this episode that we don't need the full Thunderbird 1 and 2 launch sequences. We just send them off, that's it, into the advert break. No need to spend, well, it's normally about a full 5 minutes getting both of them launched. It shows that, you know, if you've got enough story material, don't need to waste time with that, just boom. For a story that is only really set in one location, there's a lot of... There's a really good pace to this one. Back at the camp, we see, well, Brains is still in the sand, Tintin is still in a trance, so... who sent that emergency call?
International rescue from Anasta base.
Oh, was it Brains? Did he manage to do it somehow?
In just 9 more minutes, I shall go to see whether my friend from International Rescue has changed his mind. No man can stay in the burning sun so long without having his tongue loosened.
That's a very cool line. But why 9 minutes specifically? I could go in 7 minutes, or I could go in 11, but 9 is optimum. Here's Thunderbird 1. See, it's got there very quickly. There's no...
International Rescue! What is happening?
You had to consider that was a possibility. When you tangle with members of International Rescue, other members of International Rescue might just show up to ruin your day.
Virgil, what's your ETA?
ETA now 2.5 minutes, Father.
Father!
Yes?
Father, I can see Brains. Down below in the sand.
So?
He's buried in the sand. Up to his neck. I'm going down now.
And Tintin? What about Tintin?
This is always good stuff as well, when there's a member of International Rescue directly endangered. Whether it's Scott in The Uninvited, or Brains and Tintin in this, or Virgil in Terror in New York City, or...
So, they have found my victim in the sand.
I was going to say Alan and Grandma in Move and You're Dead, but that situation is just so contrived that it doesn't quite fall into the same category. But I really like it when other members of International Rescue are seriously worried about their friends and colleagues. It makes the stakes much more personal than just, oh, here's generic guy stuck in building that's on fire.
Estimated time of arrival now 1 minute.
And he's brought Gordon along with him because, you know, John is right there. But no, John doesn't count.
Water.
Brains, who on earth did this to you?
Oh.
Scott. Thank heaven. Where's Tintin?
I don't know, fella. We'll soon find her. Now, don't you worry about a thing. First, I'm going to get you out of here.
Some more great voice acting there as well from David Graham and Shane Rimmer. Just Brains' weariness and Shane Rimmer's just, oh my goodness, who did this to you?
A veritable swarm of Thunderbirds.
Oh, that's another great line, isn't it, as Thunderbird 2 lands. See, now the Hood's happy that all this International Rescue backup has arrived. Because he can get that camera out and take those pictures.
The first part of my plan.
Or is it going to be a bit more elaborate than that? No, he's turned on the camera. Oh, there's the camera detector, and of course, Scott isn't in Thunderbird 1. He's busy digging...
Tintin!
Brains out of the sand. Virgil's found Tintin. I still don't know who sent that rescue signal. As Tintin's very much out of it.
Well, how do you feel now, Brains?
Oh, I'm all right, but Tintin, she's gonna be okay. But the professor's not so good.
Okay, Tintin, try again. There was this stranger, you said.
Yes, that's right. And he had these terrible eyes that I couldn't look away from. And as he spoke, I felt I was slipping away all the time. It was horrible.
Who do you think it could have been, Tintin?
This is nice.
Did you recognize him?
No, I had never seen him before in my life, and yet I felt I knew him in some far-off way. Oh, Virgil, I'm so sleepy still.
That's, I think, the only acknowledgement in the show that Tintin is connected with the Hood.
We're all mighty relieved at the news.
And it's something that the show never really explored. Obviously, we know that the Hood is connected to Kirano, but no one in the show ever seems to put these pieces together.
And the Anasta expedition?
Listen, Scott. Brains' treasure at the bottom of the lake will have to wait. International Rescue was not set up to go joyriding round on treasure trails. At this moment, it's not even functional. Is that?
But you've got John, Father.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, something that was touched on more in the John Thaden novels, the Tracys finally putting their heads together about the whole Hood's connection to them thing and trying to get to the bottom of it.
What's the news from base?
Well, Father is going to arrange for a helicopter to ship out the professor to hospital, and then he says we've got hot-footed back to base.
Yeah, the professor just gets rather sidelined. Just basically booted out of the episode at this point, which is a shame.
There's just one thing that puzzles me.
What's that, Scott?
After Father had gone off the air, I noticed that the photo alert had been operating.
But that's impossible. Who could be taking photographs of Thunderbird in this area? There's nobody within miles of us.
Except for that guy from last night.
That's it. Why didn't I think of this before?
It's not a big revelation, really.
I regret to say that this whole expedition has been used by our enemies as a means of drawing international rescue to a lonely spot. We have walked straight into a trap.
Well, no, not really. Again, that's a very cool line of dialogue, but the Hood didn't set up the expedition as such, did he? He knew about it, but he didn't know when it was happening. He had to rely on you guys to set it up and go out there so that he could follow along. It's not really a plan he's hatched as such. He's just sort of improvising, making use of what's going on as it happens. Anyway, it's now nighttime. Tintin is in bed, and who should enter but...
Oh!
Shh! Tintin, it's only me.
Brains, what are you doing up at this time of night?
Tintin, I haven't been able to sleep for worry.
What about?
Well, you heard what Mr. Tracy said about the Anasta expedition having caused international rescue a lot of trouble.
I love this stuff too.
I don't think he meant we had done it deliberately.
No, but I feel awfully guilty about it, and to cap it all, we've got someone spying on us.
That Brains would feel personally responsible for everything that's happened.
Yeah, that's what I figured. And there's only one place he could be observing us from. The center of the lake.
He's a nice guy, is Brains, and I think that's why he's my favourite Thunderbirds character.
Brains, you're not going out into the lake tonight.
Tintin, I am. I'm gonna see what's down there. Now, here's what I want you to do.
Even if this is a bit irresponsible, I also really like, though, that for the rest of the episode, the puppet is showing the physical signs of his torture in the desert, in the sand. He's still got the cracked lips, and he's got these sort of almost greenish grey bags under his eyes. Tintin obviously still looks fabulous. She doesn't seem to have a hair out of place after what happened to her, but yeah, Brains is still looking a bit worse for wear. Do we even see the Professor again? We last see him lying on the floor with a bruise on his cheek and a gash on his forehead. And that's it. What a potentially fun character to just get sidelined from the story like that.
I'm gonna take a look in there.
Be careful, Brains, please.
I suppose his "oh, jolly good show, what?" antics would be a bit at odds with the rather serious tone of this story. But I suppose there would have been a bit of fun to be mined out of keeping Brains and Tintin's connection to international rescue secret. Okay, just because the Thunderbirds have shown up, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to reveal that connection to him. I don't know, it's just, I really love those Peter Dineley silly toff characters. Yeah. But we still have Sir Jeremy Odge. We'll get to him at some day when we cover Perils of Penelope. Meanwhile, Brains has returned to that place where he found the treasure from. Found a lot more treasure.
Professor Blakely was definitely right, Tintin. We had found the right column.
Brains, is there anyone down there?
No, Tintin. There appears to be no one down here.
And here we go. What's this? Brains has pulled back a rock and there's a cable. Oh, whose cable is it?
So, I have visitors. My little alarm system works.
It's the Hood's. A cable he's laid at some point. Somehow, I'd love to know the timeline of events. He's been very busy during this episode, at points where we don't see him.
What's the matter, Brains?
Tintin, I found a cable leading from this column. And hey, here's another one.
Brains. I don't like it. I'm going to go and waken Scott and the others.
Now, the last time we saw a cable leading from an underwater temple on the Randomiser, it was in search of the Taj Mahal, and it was attached to a dynamite plunger. So, again, I like this with Brains. He's so enthusiastic about his discovery. He doesn't really twig that it's something that shouldn't be there and maybe is going to lead him into trouble until it's too late, because now the Hood is swimming out to sort of meet him halfway, really. Which will lead to another very sinister shot of him. That's it, following the cable, and then... Oh, that's so cool, where he suddenly finds the cable is running between the Hood's feet, pan up the body, the oddly proportioned body, but it doesn't matter, because you just have that face behind the visor and those glowing eyes. And the fact as well that the mouth and nose are covered with some sort of oxygen mask. They've not just gone for the same kind of mask as Brains and Tintin were wearing.
Brains.
Those glowing eyes look so sinister in that scene. He's really on top form this week, I think, the Hood. This is one of his best appearances, best performances. He really feels, not only does he feel dangerous, but it also feels like the International Rescue Team just...
I tried to stop him, but he...
cannot fight him, cannot get a handle on him.
Got to get down there right away.
To stop him. Brains is unconscious.
To get the treasure before his friends find him.
And now it's time for... bit of renovation on the old temple. I'm not entirely sure how this helps his plan, blowing up the temple in order to get the treasure, but doesn't really matter, and he's buried Brains alive again. That's twice in one day. Poor old Brains. I also like as well, now it's the next morning, and the Tracy brothers they clearly haven't had time to shave that morning. They've had time to put their uniforms on.
Gordon?
But they've all got the stubble around their cheeks and chins. That's a lovely touch. Here we are, rolling out Thunderbird 4. And that is a lovely shot of Thunderbird 4 entering the water.
Merging now.
Well, let me know if you need any help, Gordon.
FAB.
I'll send Virgil. I'll send Tintin. I'll send everyone but me. I'm busy at the mobile control desk. Lug that thing onto the shoreline.
The temple is in ruins, Scott. Brains couldn't have survived.
Well, search the area, Gordon. If he is alive, he's got about 7 minutes of oxygen left.
If he is alive, he's nearly dead. Oh, Gordon's got his frowning face on. Everyone's got their frowning face on. And Thunderbird 4 is a really pretty vehicle up close, especially when it's all weathered and all that dirt and grime on it. I love the weathering on that, but I really love seeing Thunderbird 4 close up. It's a really nice shape. But of course it's not really designed for underwater combat as such. Unlike this vessel, very, very slowly creeping up on Thunderbird 4. Yep, the Hood. And his submarine clearly has a little cannon thingy mounted on the front of it. Yeah, we know from previous episodes Thunderbird 4 does have a little cannon, but it's not...
There's air bubbles coming from under some rubble here.
Yay!
Hurry! Bring the aerostatic lifting kit. It might be Brains.
It's on its way, Gordon.
Oh, I wish it was the Professor if he'd gone off on his own. I just wanted to help, what? Oh, here we go. Yay! Oh, that music, that little tension sting.
So, at last, now to destroy International Rescue and then collect the treasure.
Gordon Tracy is the whole of International Rescue, isn't he? Ooh.
I'm being attacked. There's another craft down here.
That was a...
Keep Scott clear until I call for him.
Almost hit Thunderbird 4. Oh, another shot. And that one did hit. Oh. And now Virgil has taken over the mobile control desk, because Scott is on the way down to help Brains with an air supply. Thunderbird 4, meanwhile, very slowly moving into the chase. surprised though that the Hood is making such a hasty retreat here, considering he really wanted to destroy International Rescue. Now he's just running for it. Oh, that's it. One hit. And it's all over for the Hood.
My motors! They're flooding!
Oh, poor little submarine.
Hey!
Gordon's seeing him making his getaway. He's abandoned ship. Oh, and there goes the boat. Oh, kablooey! There's a big old explosion on the surface of the water.
What happened?
Gordon, what happened?
I'll explain later. Get Scott down here fast. I'm going after Brains.
Yay, Gordon heroism moment. Those are all too rare in this show. I love how many points there are in this episode where everyone's worried for everyone else's survival and well-being. It's so good. Meanwhile, the Hood, his demolition work, has managed to reveal so much treasure that if only he'd kept his head down, he could have had some of that. But no, he has to go for the whole destroy International Rescue thing. And now it's all over for him. And here comes Scott. Scott's actually doing something. Bringing this is the hydrostatic hoist. Comes in it's basically a self-inflating balloon in a big red crate. Again, this isn't the most exciting sequence, but the fact that we've got this music, this all so important music, really sells it. Again, this seems like something, a bit of rescue equipment that seems a bit more plausible than many of the other, machines really. Most of what International Rescue has is machines. This actually seems a fairly useful little tool for underwater rescues. It's nice that, again, we see inventions of Brains that are not machines. There are the odd handy little device or gadget to assist with things like that. This actually makes a lot of sense. But needless to say, to give us a bit more tension, will they get Brains out in time? The rope is fraying. Oh, the balloon is still rising. Are they going to do it? Oh, it's so tense. And Gordon is hauling Brains out by himself. Scott is just watching. Because, he brought the balloon down here. What do you expect him to do? Help? That's not his way. He sits at the desk and tells people what to do. Yay, Brains is saved. And the professor is just airlifted out of the story. That was it. He may as well not even have been here. Poor old professor.
Well, it looks a bit heartless shipping him out like this.
Yeah.
Just so that he doesn't see that Brains and I belong to the International Rescue Team.
Well, I guess the best thing for him in his condition is hospitalization. But he's sure going to get a surprise when he comes to.
Oh, that's it. Oh, yeah, we're now over to the hospital. Following the professor into hospital.
Now that the world has heard about our discoveries at Lake Anasta, how does it feel to be a celebrity, Professor?
Pretty fair, my dear, pretty fair. I say, how are you two fixed over the next few months?
Well, Jingo, I say, I love this guy.
One or two commitments.
Brains has now got his arm in a very crude sling and a bump on his head.
At the foot of the Caribbean 400 years ago.
And the professor's got another archaeological trip in his head.
So hurry. Are you off then?
Visiting hours are over, Professor. I'm afraid we've got to go.
Yeah, we must dash. Well, so long, Professor.
Oh,
what an odd pair. Excitement too much for them, I suppose. Not used to it.
And also it's strange that Brains and Tintin said, oh yeah, our discovery has been announced to the world.
You to soothe our nerves. Come on, let's get back to base.
Did Brains use his Mr. Hackenbacker or Mr. X aliases for this? Who knows? But the professor is going to catch up on his hospital reading, Treasure the Easy Way. What a lovely way to end the story. What a lovely way to end a lovely episode of Thunderbirds. As I said, I was never a fan of this one as a kid, because I think I preferred the more spectacular, fire flash and not the Sidewinder, but like shopping centres going up in flames, big special effects heavy stuff. And as I've got older, I come to appreciate the characters in these shows more than the action. So this is a lovely combination of both, really. Some lovely action stuff, some lovely underwater stuff, but also really nice focus on the regular characters. And I think this has got to be an almost unique episode in that there are only a couple of guest characters, one of which is only in a couple of scenes. Both of them may as well neither have been there. It's all focused on the regulars, and particularly two regulars who don't get a lot of focus in this show, Brains and Tintin, and of course the Hood at his most sinister best. So I think this is definitely one of the great episodes of Thunderbirds. It's a rather atypical story, realised very nicely. Some lovely heroic moments for everybody. I really like the sinister air of the Hood in this one. So yeah, a pretty good choice for the 3rd anniversary of the podcast.
Nice to have Thunderbirds for our birthday edition, isn't it?
Yes, it's sort of fitting, isn't it? Quite appropriate, I think.
Yeah. Now, if the stars have aligned, then for next week, Chris won't get Torchy.
Ah, right.
Was that the X-Files you were doing then?
It was, yes. I just tried to inject a bit of a spooky air.
I'm now imagining some creepy pizzicato strings.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
Yes, Chris obviously doesn't deserve Torchy.
No.
But there's still a lot of Torchy episodes.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be a cruel twist of fate if he ended up with Torchy?
Wouldn't it?
Let's keep our fingers crossed that he doesn't get that.
But it does
happen. We got a lovely birthday present. No, don't be horrible. Anyway, have you got any of that cake left?
Oh, yeah, just a bit.
There's not a lot there.
No, it's enough for you, isn't it?
Well, I was hoping for more than a sort of Satsuma-sized piece, but thanks. Anyway, we're off to celebrate our birthday in style by eating a tiny piece of cake and drinking some fizzy water. So,
lovely.
Yeah, never leave me in charge of party planning.
No, exactly. You're hardly the social secretary, are you?
No, so sorry about that. Podsterons, if you've got any birthday wishes for the randomizer for next week, I think, then email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Email your birthday wishes to Chris and the Randomizer Marina, and we will read them out. And pass on.
And even tell us your favourite one. How's that?
Oh, yes, tell us your favourite one.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And possibly the one you're looking forward to the most, which is going to come up at random in the future.
Yeah.
But for now, I think that's the end, isn't it, of this one? We've done 156 pods. I think we deserve a little break, probably until next week.
We've had a good run, haven't we?
Well, there's more run to come, I'm afraid.
Oh, is there? Oh, we're not stopping there?
Yeah, we're going to carry on running for at least a bit longer.
Okay, fair enough.
You go and get ready for next week. And Podsteron, have a lovely week. We will be in your ears next Monday and beyond. Ta-ra!
Bye!
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go!
Spectrum is green.
Well, what do you want to do for our 5th birthday?
I haven't thought that far ahead.
Well, I'm thinking that far ahead now.
We might not be here for our 5th birthday.
What do you mean not be here? You talk about the heat death of the universe.
No, I might be a huge star by then. I won't have time for this sort of thing.
Well, you're certainly deserving of that accolade, but I don't know if it's actually going to happen.
I mean, 5th anniversary, that would be great, wouldn't it? We've got to have, that's the big bash, isn't it, really?
That is, yeah. Well, that'll be 260, will it be?
Wow.
260 pods, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start thinking now. Maybe we can have a piñata. We can have a
Thunderbird 2 piñata.
Exactly,
and inside a pod piñata, and inside that a Thunderbird 4 piñata, and inside that a Gordon Tracy piñata.
All right, okay. Yeah, we could do all that. Be nice, wouldn't it?
God, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we could have a Tracy Island swimming pool, inflatable.
What?
For all our guests?
No, because that'll have a giant inflatable chocolate biscuit in it, won't it?
Yes, of course it will. Yes,
yeah, not forgetting that in a hurry.
Yeah. All right, I'll think of some more ideas.
Okay, yes. Let's get party planning. We've only got 2 years.
Great. Okay, I'll crack on.
Good luck.
Bye. Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.